Level 3 of the RCHN Pilot Proficiency program is aimed at the intermediate sports pilot. In this video, we'll show all the maneuvers and give insight into learning and completing this level successfully. This time, I'm flying the Tron Dnamic, a 700 size lightweight helicopter. This brand new helicopter belongs to Eddie Thompson and has only had a few flights, so many thanks to him, as well as Keith from 360 RC Technologies, the UK distributor for Tron. The first exercise is a stationary nose-in hover for 1 minute. The guide doesn't specify height, but as in previous episodes, I would suggest 2 meters, which is skids above eye level. This is consistent with other schedules such as F3C, the British Model Flying Association and IRCHA certification, and is mostly about safety. You'll be looking up at the model, which is a good thing, as in normal flight the helicopter will be above your head and you should be used to this view. A minute seems a long time for a hover, so you're looking for minimal drift and changes in height. You're also looking for single corrections to correct errors, not multiple. What I mean by this is that if the model drifts diagonally, you should be able to correct diagonally and not with separate elevator and aileron movements. This is one of those maneuvers that can seem impossible to hold steady initially, but as with everything about helicopters, it's a case of getting used to the view, letting your head figure out what's useful and keep practicing. You should have this absolutely nailed, or else it will hold your flying back as you avoid this orientation or are slow to react. For the nose-in takeoff, you want to come up to 1 meter or 3 feet with very little drift or bounce. This is actually pretty difficult to do as you can't see the tail fin when it's on the ground and it's an unfamiliar view. Practice hovering down low before you go for this one. The nose-in constant heading circle starts from the ground and has 2 variations, being clockwise and anti-clockwise circles. Take off nose-in, hover for 5 seconds, and then move backwards and pause before starting the nose-in circle. The nose should stay pointing somewhere behind you as you go round. It's quite difficult to get a nice smooth circuit initially, so it can be easier to break it up into the cardinal points and try to hit each mark. Then you can start filling in the curves to make it look better. After the circle is completed, come forward, hover for 5 seconds, and then land nose in. The second constant heading circle is similar, but with the circle direction reversed. This is the last of the nose-in hovering exercises, and one of my favorites. As the model changes the relative angle to you and moves in different directions, it really tests your skill and makes sure you haven't got any weaknesses. If you do find weaknesses where the model gains height or you struggle to make it smooth or hold position, that's a great thing. Once you recognize the grey area, it doesn't take long to fix it with a bit of repeat training and attacking it from different angles. If you fancy doing a bit of extra homework, try doing this at different heights. So maybe where you're a foot off the ground looking down at the disc, and also higher, maybe 5 meters up, where you have a more extreme view of the model. Landing nose in is probably easier than takeoff, but try and land within the circle. You'll get pushed around by ground effect. This is going to be very useful for autorotations where you can approach and finish nose in. 540-degree stall turns are next. There are 4 variations where you go left and right, and the pirouettes are done both ways. The program says you should start the 1.5 pirouettes once the model has stopped climbing. That's quite a lot of turning as you drop, so you'll need to get a decent amount of height on the stall. When doing the stall turns downwind, you won't get as much height as upwind, so it might be worth holding the model flatter as you enter and more collective to get it really moving up. Holding it flatter for longer will also help penetrate forwards on windy days. Travelling or straight rolls are more difficult than they appear, and it can take a long time to learn a decent version. So to do all 4 variations well is quite the task. You should be traveling parallel to the flight line at a constant height. The roll should be centered, so started before it reaches you, inverted at the center, and complete once it passes. Wind from behind you or in your face can make this a lot harder, as the model rolling away from the wind will lift and rolling into the wind will drop, so collective control is important to keep the height constant. This is the first of the compound maneuvers, where we do a pirouette at the top of a loop. Ideally the model shouldn't be traveling fast when it gets to the top, which should make it easier to drop it and pirouette. The 4 variations are left to right, right to left, and with the pirouettes in both directions as well. Ideally the loop should be the same size, centered in front of you, and the pirouette should be centered at the top too. You won't need to make corrections during the piro, so it's mostly a case of making sure you have some forward speed and the helicopter is flat or angled slightly down and going in the right direction before hitting the rudder. It's a really nice maneuver when you can do them well. You'll need good collective control and orientation skills to do this one to a high standard. Variations of this have appeared in previous set maneuvers lists. In F3N there's something called a standing 8, which is 2 loops, one on top of the other, with a half pirouette at the top. You can see all of these maneuvers build upon each other, and having a program like this will make sure you don't miss anything important out. The Immelmann is a half loop followed by a half roll to upright. There are 4 variations again, where we do them from the left and the right, and then with the roll in both directions as well. You want to go a little bit past yourself before you start the half loop. That way, when you come out at the top and execute the half roll, the roll is centered on your position. You don't really have to do them like that, but it gives a bit of F3N, F3C style to the move, and will also make sense when we do the next maneuver. When you exit the half loop at the top, ideally you want to keep a bit of nose down, so that as you continue and do the roll, the model keeps forward speed and you finish the maneuver well. We've already done a bit of looping and rolling in this level, so this shouldn't be difficult at all. What it is doing is getting you ready for the next maneuver, which is the half Cuban 8. You definitely want to be happy with the Immelmann before you move on. The half Cuban 8 is similar to the Immelmann, but instead of a half loop and exit horizontally, you'll be doing 5/8 of a loop and come down at an angle of 45 degrees. And on the downward section, you'll be doing a half roll that should be centered on your position and returns you to upright. There are 4 variations that are required from the left and the right, as well as doing the half rolls with both left and right aileron. You want to fly past yourself before starting the loop, and you want to make it pretty big too. When you exit at 45 degrees down, the model will have a fair amount of speed, so don't touch any other sticks, just go for the aileron and pull out upright to horizontal along the same line you entered. This will take a lot of practice to make them look good and get familiar with the 45-degree down roll. This is used in a few set maneuvers in competition as well. In F3N there's a backwards Cuban 8 as well as a Cuban 8 roll reversal, which is one of the highest scoring, and for good reason. The flying circle starts in a nose in hover. Turn 90 degrees and begin a circle of at least 10 meters in diameter. This is a flown maneuver, not a hovering one, so there should be some speed and a bit of bank to the turns. The model should come to a smooth stop before rotating and going the other way, and this will show decent control while keeping the speed and height consistent. Center heading figure 8 is a figure 8 where the first circle is flown sideways with the tail pointing to the center, and the second circle is flown with the nose to the center. Only 2 variations are required here, where you simply reverse the direction of sideways travel for the second figure of 8. This is a great maneuver for getting familiar with how much the helicopter has to lean to keep a constant speed. One way, the tail rotor will be providing the sideways thrust and the model will go round pretty flat. The other way, you'll be fighting the tail thrust and leaning against it. And now that the disc is at an angle, any gusts will make it want to jump around a bit. The rudder rate will be fairly slow, so it'll also be a good test of model setup and your fingers. The autorotation landing can be done from 20 meters or higher. This will start either from your left or right, parallel to the flight line, and the aim is to land within a 2-meter circle, while coming down with a smooth and consistent rate of descent. Most pilots will land a lot further away than the landing pad, and this is probably due to them starting too far out. It may help to feel like the helicopter is almost coming down over your shoulder to hit the right spot. The program says you should do 2 autorotations, one from the left and one from the right. You want to avoid downwind autorotations wherever you can. So I change sides of the field so I can do my second autorotation into wind. You obviously only want to do this when it's safe and within your club rules. In conclusion, level 3 of the pilot proficiency program covered the remaining upright orientations, which was a lot of nose in hovering, as well as some of the compound aerobatics and autorotations. Thanks again to Eddie and Keith for the use of the Tron Dnamic. It flew perfectly well and did all the maneuvers with ease, which is nothing less than what I would have expected. I've put links in the description below if you want to know more. In the next episode, level 4, for the advanced sports pilot, we'll cover inverted hovering orientations, more aerobatics, and some basic 3D maneuvers. Until next time, good luck.